For the ones who work hard to ensure their crew can always go the extra mile, and the ones who get in early so everyone can go home on time, there's Grainger, offering professional-grade supplies backed by product experts so you can quickly and easily find what you need. Plus, you can count on access to a committed team ready to go the extra mile for you. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
You are listening to the Hiking Radio Network, where we talk the walk with shows by hikers, about hikers, for everybody.
I'm wondering if you'd go wandering with me through the wilderness and woods to where the winds are blowing free, through the darkness of the night, heading toward the morning.
Welcome to the Jester Section Hiker Podcast with the spotlight on section hikers.
And I'll spread the word and you beat the drum. We'll round up the troops and get the gang to come. And we'll leave the streets and these neighborhoods, head over the river and through the woods.
I am excited to announce that the podcast episodes that are specific to the Mountains to Sea Trail are now being sponsored by the MST Guide by Pocket Trails. The MST Guide is the most comprehensive app for maps and navigation developed for the Mountains to Sea Trail, providing unprecedented information and ease of access for day hikers, section hikers, and through hikers. Never get lost again. Updated maps with trail route changes and everything you need from parking areas, camping locations, water sources, and more. Available now for download through Google Play and coming soon for the iPhone. Check it out and download today. The MST Guide by Pocket Trails. Follow the lines in the palm of your hand. Welcome to the podcast, everybody. You are listening to Jester Section Hiker, the premier podcast with the spotlight on section hikers. And I'm your host, Julie Jester Gayhart. For this episode, I am back with a guest that has spent some time section hiking the Appalachian Trail, the Mountains to Sea Trail, and started a business created around serving the Mountains to Sea Trail hiking community. Josh Smith with Pocket Trails joins me today to share his journey to creating the MST Guide. Oh, and by the way, thanks, Josh, for sponsoring the MST specific episodes. Before we get to my interview with Josh, I wanted to let you know that the Mountains to Sea Trail organization is now featuring the podcast in their informational email when you sign up to receive more information about the trail, and on their website at mountainstoseatrail.org when you click to learn more about the 40-day hikes. I think that is pretty awesome. Thank you, Mountains to Sea Trail. Thanks for joining me for another episode of the podcast. And if you are new to the show, thanks for joining me. And now on to my interview with Josh. All right, everybody, welcome back to the podcast. And as you heard in my introduction, today I have with me Josh Smith with the MST Guide. Welcome to the podcast, Josh.
Hey, how's it going today?
It is going very well. And I'm actually really excited for the listeners to hear more about you. I know over the past couple episodes, they have heard the ad about the MST Guide. So not only are we going to talk more about that later in the episode, but right now I'm going to try to do my best to unfold your journey into creating the MST Guide. And I think the best way to start off doing that is to talk about your service to our United States Air Force and your journey through, maybe tell us a little bit about that, maybe what you did in the Air Force. And then right when you were getting ready to get out of the Air Force, you started thinking about some long distance trails. So talk to us a little bit about your journey in the Air Force and then lead us into this thought process of completing a long distance trail.
Yeah. So I joined the Air Force in November 2011 and not really sure what I wanted to do in the Air Force. I went in open mechanical so I could get any sort of mechanical job I wanted. And I was really aiming for a metals tech job, doing machining, making parts for planes, tools, whatever. But the week I went in, that wasn't available for me that week.
Wow.
So so I ended up getting a job doing fuel systems maintenance, and I picked that because it was the shortest tech school. So
that makes sense.
Wanted to get to my base and start working on planes, but I got lucky. I was blessed. I got stationed in Virginia, so I wasn't very far from home, and I got to work on the F-22, which is, in my opinion, in a lot of people's opinions, the best fighter jet in the world right now.
Well, that's cool. And your home is in North Carolina, or your home was North Carolina, correct?
Yeah, Hillsborough. It's still my home. Hillsborough is still my home. That's what I
Perfect.
Mm-hmm. I'm living in New York right now, but I guess we can get into that later.
All right. So you get to work on these awesome jets.
Yeah. And I loved it. Right. And my job was kind of easy. It came to me pretty naturally. And, but I enjoyed doing it, and I wanted to do more. I thought about changing career fields and working on other parts of the jet. Just cause I enjoyed the maintenance life, but I didn't necessarily enjoy being in the Air Force. And
right.
I came to understand that as you get higher up in rank, it's less of actually doing maintenance and working and more of doing forms and office work and politics and that kind of stuff, which that didn't appeal to me so much. So it didn't seem like I would want to continue to finish my time in the Air Force and retire that way. So I did my 6 years, my enlistment, got out honorable discharge. And as I was getting ready to get out the year prior, I, started thinking, well, what else would I do? And I found out about the Appalachian Trail and was interested in it and wanted to learn more about it. And I did. I started reading books and, a walk in the woods.
Oh, gosh. I think everybody at this point knows how I feel about a walk in the woods.
Yeah.
So, but hey, you know what? It gets a lot of people out hiking. So there you go.
Yeah. And it was enough to inspire me to want to learn more, and to actually aim for completing a hike. And so I was like, all right, this is it. I'm going to get out of the Air Force. And then the timing is perfect. I'll get out in November and, I can start the next season, start hiking.
So you served in the military from 2011 until the end of, November 2017, correct?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. So I decided to start a little earlier. I didn't want to be in any sort of bubble. I wanted to avoid the norovirus and, the mosquitoes and all that stuff. So I was like, we're definitely starting early. So I started February 16th of 2018.
February 16th, 2018 on the AT. So you read A Walk in the Woods and you were like, oh, well, if Bill Bryson could do this, then, hey, and you had to have heard about the Appalachian Trail before, right? Being from North Carolina.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know when I first came to learn about the Appalachian Trail, but I really didn't start looking into it until it might have been about 2 years before I got out, because I had it was a goal in my mind, at least a year before I got out that I wanted to do it. And around the same time, that's when I learned about the Mountains to Sea Trail as well. And when I learned about that, that kind of rocked my world, because I was like, wow, there's actually a trail across the state of North Carolina. Like, what do I love more than North Carolina?
Right. Well, let me ask you this. So before you made it up in your mind that you were going to go on the AT, mm-hmm. and then at the same time, paralleling in your mind was the Mountains to Sea Trail, which goes, from Clingman's Dome to Jockey's Ridge across the state of North Carolina. Mm-hmm. Were you battling maybe which one to do?
Yeah. So the AT was definitely my first goal. And then I learned about the Mountains to Sea Trail and was like, wait, I could do this one instead, but there aren't as many people that do it. It's not as long. it doesn't have all the, it's not all trail. There's road walking involved,
Yeah.
which kind of, it wasn't a deal breaker for me, but it definitely wasn't on the plus side of it.
So then you're back on the AT. So you say, hey, yes, I'm going on the AT. And so take us.
Oh,
yeah, you're out of the military. Yeah.
The one more thing about the Mountains of Sea Trails, there was no guide other than the PDF guides. And I got experience using those and was like, I don't think I can do 1,200 miles with this guide. So I'll go with the AT. You can't, it's blazed the entire way. You can't miss it. And then I had another friend who I actually started with that was starting around the same time. And so we told each other that we'd start together. So we were like, yeah, let's do the AT. The timing worked out better. And it seemed like the thing to do, at the time. It seemed like that was what I needed to do at the time.
Right. At that time. So your career with the military was ending. You're reading and doing everything you can to learn about the AT. You and your friend, you guys get on the AT. Was it your intention that February of 2018 that you were going to do the entire AT to be a thru hiker? Yes, I'm going from Georgia to Maine type deal.
Yeah. I've actually never been to Maine in my life. I've always wanted to go see Maine. I think Maine is a beautiful state from what I've seen. I want to go there. So yeah, I was like, I'm going to go from Georgia to Maine. What better way to get there than on foot, right? I didn't like calling myself a thru hiker at first because to me,
you brought that up originally. So, and I found that very interesting. So tell us why you didn't want to consider yourself a thru hiker.
So to me, thru hiker seemed like a title that people earned by thru hiking. And I didn't want to take away from people that had actually done it by, me, Josh Smith in Georgia, haven't even gotten to North Carolina yet. And I'm calling myself a thru hiker. I didn't want to claim to be something that I'm not. But eventually I did like get used to the idea of calling myself a thru hiker. Yeah, I'm thru hiking. That's what I'm doing. But yeah, I just didn't want to call myself that at first. I don't know. It was just a weird way.
I understand that. And I've heard people say all kinds of different things like, I'm attempting a thru hike, I'm going to do the best I can kind of thing. That's the end goal. Mm-hmm. Instead of saying, yeah, I'm a thru hiker. So I think people just have various things in their minds. I mean, some people are like, yes, I'm thru hiking. I'm going from Georgia to Maine. I've heard people say, well, if I get to Harper's Ferry, I'll be good. Then I'll reevaluate. So I don't see anything wrong with it. I think everybody has a different thing of what they want to do and what they want to call themselves. And these days, hey, why not? Right?
Yeah. I mean, now looking back now, I was like, that's silly. I could have just said I was thru hiker because that's what I was doing. But, it was. I
know one thing you can claim, and I don't want to forget about this, is your trail name. Because I remember asking you go by PBS. Right. But that stands for, and tell us how you got that. What does PBS stand for? And tell us how you got that.
So PBS stands for peanut butter and spam. I got it on the trail. I was at a shelter about from Franklin. Carter Gap Shelter. So another hiker who I met for the first time at that shelter, I stopped there for lunch. Well, I actually intended to stop there for the day. But I stopped there and had lunch because I got there early. And another hiker had spam that he didn't want. And I was over here making a peanut butter tortilla and I was going to put tuna on it like I normally did, right? That's normal. And,
that's normal. That's pretty normal.
Right. Well, I was like, I'll put the spam on it. It'll be peanut butter and spam. We'll give it a shot. Before that, I don't think that I had spam before.
Wow.
I didn't remember it. So I was like,
now, was that the spam that came out of the package that has like the gel?
Yeah, the individual package.
Yeah, but it has the gel glaze on the top of the absolutely
fatty gel.
Yeah, the absolutely disgusting glaze.
And I think you're supposed to fry it.
Yeah, I think so.
It raw and it's fine. It's it's fine to eat like that. And so that's what I did. And there's a lot of other people there having lunch or stopping for the night, and they were cracking jokes and like asked me how it was. I'm like, it's really not that bad. I don't know. Like, I was reading the nutrition facts, and it's like, how many? Like, I think it's like 380 calories maybe. And then it has like some protein in it too. So it's like, oh, this is perfect hiker food, plus the peanut butter, plus the tortilla. This is the perfect hiker lunch. Yeah. I thought nothing else of it, other than wasn't too bad. First time having Spam, first time for everything. And, first time for everything. We decided to keep on hiking that day. Me and another really good friend of mine. And we broke 20 for the first time. We went almost to Franklin, but I can't remember the other Long Branch shelter maybe. So we broke 20. We had to night hike to do it. So it was my first time night hiking and had Spam for the first time. So 3 first times. And
that was a big day, Josh.
Big day for me. I don't know.
So, all right, you got your trail day. You're on your way. I mean, Franklin, you've made it through Georgia. You're now into North Carolina. So I know originally you told me you got the Virginia blues. So as you were traveling through, were you still in that mindset when you got to Virginia, I'm going to keep going? Or there's a transition in your hike. So talk to us about what started happening.
So, I mean, I was loving it all the way up through Southern Virginia. I had some really good friends that I was hiking along with and just crushing miles, nothing's better than that. Just miles and what we'd say we were crushing miles and crushing beers and having a good time on the trail. And I was loving that part. When I got to I think it was really the Shenandoahs where I was like, really like, that's when the blues hit, it was nothing but rain in the shinnies. And I think that's when I was most vulnerable on the trail for the first time.
That's interesting. So when you say most vulnerable, what does that mean?
Mentally vulnerable.
Okay.
I mean, I was doing fine. I could have done the whole thing from there, but I think that's when I was getting other ideas in my mind and like, what are other things I can do? Just a quick example. For example, my girlfriend called me one day and was like, hey, you want to go on a trip to Antigua when you're done hiking? And I was like, sure. And so we planned on doing that. And like, I didn't have plans after the AT until then, it was just only the AT. And so that's like one thing that kind of came up, but obviously we planned that for like way later in the summer. So that wasn't going to interfere, but it was getting thoughts in my minds of what else can I do in life.
So are you talking like job wise? I mean, because obviously you left the military. Now you're hiking on the Appalachian Trail, or you started in, I mean, the Shenandoahs are almost the halfway point. And a lot of people go hike the AT to kind of figure out what they do want to do for the rest of their life, or they're going through a major change. And it sounds like you hit that point around the Shenandoahs. So what were those thoughts as far as what you were going to do?
Well, there were thoughts back to North Carolina. I'd been in Virginia for 6 years and I just got back home to North Carolina for a few months before I started hiking. And, I was hiking. I couldn't get this out of my mind. I was hiking away from North Carolina. I was hiking north. I was like, I don't want to go up north. They don't have Cookout or Bojangles or anything. I don't want to go.
I don't know, Josh. Maybe you should have started in Maine and hiked home.
That probably would have been a lot more incentive to keep. But,
so when was it when one of your friends said, hey, maybe you want to start listening to podcasts. Maybe you should listen to this particular person. When did that go down?
Yeah. So I never got into podcasts before hiking, but you get bored and I was tired of audiobooks and tired of music. And I was like, well, my friend Shorts was his trail name. He was like, well, I listen to podcasts, and he gave me a whole bunch of podcasts to listen to, Joe Rogan. And, there's this guy, Mighty Blue. And he talks about hikes and stuff. And I was like, oh, perfect. He talks about the AT. So I started listening to that. It was really only Mighty Blue and fantasy football podcasts that I would listen to. And,
hey, big shout out to Mighty Blue and fantasy. You're right there with fantasy football.
Yeah, I had to stay in touch with what was going on in the off season of professional football. But no, yeah. So I started listening to that, and my friend mentioned that gut hooks was because I did start out having gut hooks, but I really got into it much later on to where I was, we talked about this, how you kind of get addicted to like looking at your phone and
yeah. And for those that don't know, Gut Hook is the app that the Appalachian Trail is, it's a downloadable app you could put on your phone, and it's got everything from water sources to, shelters to other trail crossings. I mean, all the information you need to know about the Appalachian Trail.
Right. And other a lot of the major trails in North America and beyond. But anyway, yeah, gut hooks, I got really addicted to that. And like I did all my planning on it, stopped using the AWOL guide, that can stay in the pack. I don't need that. I'll just pull out my phone and, find out where the next water source is. Where's the next campsite? Where am I sleeping tonight? So,
and gut hooks is so good. And we'll get back to the addiction part real quick. It'll tell you how many feet you are. You got 200 feet to go, 50 feet to go until you're at the top of a peak. And I have found myself pulling that out like every 10 steps going, oh my God, am I not to the top of this yet? Like what's going on here? So yeah, the addiction is real.
Yeah, for sure. So I was pulling my phone out of my pocket while I'm hiking like 12 times a day and trying to resist the urge to know where I was at all times. But I was like, this is terrific. Like, why don't we have this for like, say, for example, the MST Trail? And, it just blew my mind that there's this much information out there for the AT, but not the MST, so it's like, all right, that kind of, it's a bummer, but yeah, no, I went back. I think I had to go back like a few months to find the Ryan Lynn Gut Hooks episode of Mighty Blues podcast. And I listened to that and I was like, oh wow, this guy got the idea while he's hiking on the PCT, with another guy. And they've turned it into this big thing. And like within the first few years, they were of the release, they had apps for trails all over America. So that inspired me. I was like, wow, why haven't they done this for the MST Trail yet?
And you're like, okay, so, all right, let's paint this picture. So here you are, you're hiking along the AT. Somebody tells you to listen to the Mighty Blue podcast. You go back and listen to the Gut Hook episode and realize, hey, listen, this guy created this on, while they were out hiking, it's a company now. So what did you do then? Did you just kind of mull over that a little bit when you were thinking, hey, why doesn't the MST Trail have this? Or did you go into like business mode? Like what happened after that?
Well, I was, using gut hooks and thinking, how many people are out here using gut hooks, how much does each person pay for gut hooks? Like, how were they able to turn this into their full-time job, And I mean, the answer is kind of simple. There's thousands of people that hike the AT every year that attempt it. And I'd say roughly half of them have gut hooks, at least.
Well, not to mention all the section hikers and day hikers that are out there using it that just buy those. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then you multiply that by how many trails they have gut hooks for. And I mean, maybe you'd only want to count, to be conservative, only count the major 3 trails, the Triple Crown. But, I mean, then the math is pretty simple. They're obviously able to sustain this and maintain it. Would I be able to do something like that for the MST Trail? I don't know. I mean, probably not. Look, there's only Kate Dixon said an average of 12 to 14 through hikers a year.
Yeah, I think she said that actually on the podcast when I asked her, how many completers they actually have between through hikers and section hikers. I believe she said 12.
Yeah, 12, I think is what she said. Yeah. And I mean, the max, I think the most they've ever had is maybe like 14 or 16, definitely no more than 20. And so, but it's growing, right? And it's got to, that was my thoughts, is this trail is going to get big and I want to be a part of it in any way I can. And I knew that the trail needed a better guide and definitely an electronic guide. Because for one, it doesn't weigh anything, you're already bringing your phone. Very few people don't bring a phone when they hike. So why not make an app for it? Why not make it to where you can know, at a glance, you press the little tracking icon and boom, there you are. This is where I'm at the trail. This is my mileage. This is how far I need to go tonight. This is my next water source. It just made too much sense. Like that we need something like this for the MST Trail.
So all this is formulating in your mind, and it sounds like to me you have a plan. So what happened to your hiking plan on the Appalachian Trail?
Yeah. So I wanted to continue to hike, but it's hard to hike when you have this burning, inside of you, and you like, that's all you can think about. If you can't sleep at night, because you're thinking about, how am I going to make this app? Like, what do I need to learn to be able to do this? How do I get involved with the friends in the Mountain Sea Trail? You're thinking about all these other things rather than I need to go to sleep so I can wake up and hike tomorrow. It was a huge distraction, first of all. And then, as I'm hiking and trying to zone out, as you do, and you get lost in thoughts when you're hiking, but when your thoughts are kind of like this repetitive loop in your mind, and like you can't break out of that loop, you can't go and think about something else. It kind of got, it actually was really annoying to try to hike when I could only think about that one thing, and that was the Mountain Sea Trail. This trail that I'd only heard of, and I did a fair amount of research into it, enough to know that I wasn't ready to attempt it yet. But this trail that goes through my hometown, goes across North Carolina, that was what I wanted to do. Maybe not what I needed to do or set out to do, but it got to a point where that I wanted to. I was like, man, I kind of rather be on the Mountain Sea Trail right now with a GPS, like gathering all this data. That'd be, and that was actually my thought when I got to Harper's Ferry. Is like, I could have done that Mountain Sea Trail by now.
Yeah, because Harper's Ferry is, I think it's a little over 1,000 miles, and the Mountains of Sea Trail is 1,175 miles.
Yeah.
And I admire you, honestly, for following your gut and that loop in your brain, because a lot of people have that feeling in their gut and that loop in their brain while they're at work, wishing they were out hiking, the AT or whatever trail is near and dear to their heart. So At that point, did you get off trail?
So I was getting closer to Harper's Ferry. And I was like, well, that'd be a pretty good place to kind of stop and pick back up if I needed to. Pretty easy to get to. And I was about 2 days out, and I called my brother. I was at the Dome shelter. What's the Whiskey Hollow shelter, the newer one. And I had service when I stopped there. So I went up behind it, on the hill behind it. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, but there's this hill where you can get service at. Called my brother, who's out in school for IT out in Utah. And I was like, he's got to know something about making apps. This kid's pretty smart. He's 6 years younger than me, but he's smarter than me. So I called him, and I was like, here's what I want to do. I don't want to copy this other app. I want to do my own thing with it, but it's been done before. So I know that we can do it. Kind of like the hiking the trail, like someone's done it before. So why can't I do it?
Right. You want to have your own experience.
Right. Yeah. And I want to learn from it. So I was like, Isaac, what all would it take to be able to do this? And he started talking about like apps and then like databases, and he got really technical and was like talking about keys and stuff like that, and like tables and stuff. And it's like, okay, all right, you're getting too deep for me, but it sounds like you know what you're talking about. So
I was going to say already, I have no idea what you're talking about, but it sounds great.
That's exactly what I thought at the time. I was like, yeah, I was like, can we do this? He's like, yeah, I don't see why not. And I was like, would you be willing to help me with it? He's like, yeah, sure. And I was like, all right, well, that's a done deal. I'll get off in 2 days from now. Give me a few days to spend in Harper's Ferry with my friends and get down to DC and get home. But yeah, let's start this. And he was like, all right, well, I got class and stuff, so give me a few weeks. I was like, all right, sure. But as soon as I get home, I'm getting to work on this. And so that was like, that became, I think that was the night. And the other people I was staying with at the shelter that night, they can attest to it, because I probably wouldn't shut up about it. But like, that was the night when I was like, this is it. Like, this is what I'm going to do. And you know how they say never quit on a bad day, right?
Right.
Well, I was like, let me take a few days just to confirm that this is what I want to do. So 2 days later, I was in Harper's Ferry, and we stayed there. We stayed at the Hostel International, which is God rest its soul. I guess it's not there anymore. But we stayed there for a few nights, and we're just bumming around Harper's Ferry for a few days, hanging out, helping people. And when it came time for me to keep going on the trail, or I had some other hiker friends that were going into DC. So that was the perfect time for me to go in. It came down to make that decision. And I was like, yeah, this is what I want to do for sure. As much as I love the trail, and I would have loved to crush Maryland and go through Pennsylvania and all that and just keep going north to Maine. I still couldn't get it out of my head. And I was like, I'm wasting time here. I can be home. I can be in North Carolina starting on this app right now. Like time was so valuable to me. And so I did.
Well, I actually think that's the coolest thing, because you didn't let something stop. You didn't let one thing stop you from going into another. And what I mean by that is a lot of people go out to their long distance trail. They dream. It's the one bucket list item that they want to do is to complete the Appalachian Trail, Pacific Crest Trail, CDT, whatever that is.
Yeah.
And you went out with that mindset, but within 1,000 miles, you went with your gut. Your gut told you, hey, listen, I love what Gut Hook was doing. I really want to, follow through this and create my own thing. And you did. And I think this is a good point to turn. So you got off in Harper's Ferry, you went to DC, you came home, and you literally created the company Pocket Trails. And you currently have the first app, I guess, within Pocket Trails, the MST Guide. So talk to us about the MST Guide. Talk to us about what you're doing. And you're still doing this 2 years later.
Yeah. I mean, so it didn't start out that I was going to be the one making the app. My little brother was there to help, and he did get me started on it. I actually started school also to learn.
Well, yeah, I guess you had to go back to school to figure out how to make the app, how to do this and coding and all that stuff.
Yeah. And I didn't start with going into the IT field, but I found my way there. It was the right path for me. So I took one class in Java because I thought I wanted to do something with engineering. I fell in love with the Java programming language, and I was like, this is awesome. And it came naturally to me, despite having a very minimal experience with coding before. And I fell in love with it. I started working on the app. At the same time, I got a GPS and I'm out collecting data, for the trail, for the app. I knew every single waypoint in the app is going to have to be manually gathered by me or someone I can trust. And I want to confirm that it's accurate. I'm kind of a perfectionist when it comes to that stuff, like accuracy.
And me as a hiker, I want you to be a perfectionist about that, because when I download the app, I want it to be dead on. So somebody like you who's that's perfect.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, as close as possible that we can do, So yeah, I'm doing all this stuff at once and started getting involved with the Mountains to Sea Trail with the friends and working on the trail, volunteering just to get a feel for what that's like. I'd never done any volunteer work on a trail before, on a trail like the Mountains to Sea Trail before. I'll put it that way. And it was just snowballing into me doing everything from hiking and gathering data to making the app to helping with the trail. And it's this whole process that I didn't really know. I didn't have directions, like step-by-step directions. You have Google, you can Google something if you get stuck on something as far as programming, but there was nobody holding my hand. I had to figure this all out on my own. And I finally got to a point where we got the Android version working. I decided to make the Android version first, just because that's what I had available to me. But I also did take a class in Swift programming for the iOS. It would be another year until I started on that, but got the Android version out and we tested it. It was working great and it was in a usable state. We didn't have all the waypoints uploaded because that's the whole process I have to go through. Even though I had all the waypoints, I had to go through and process them and get them into the app, into the database. So that was a whole nother thing. But, as Gut Hook said in his podcast, they didn't have everything for the PCT when they first started. They had to get, they were trying to keep up with the hikers as they were heading north. So I was like, oh, okay, I'll release it a little early and we'll say, these are the waypoints we have or the segments we have waypoints for. And the other ones are coming soon, put a due date on it.
So just so everybody knows, the Mountains to Sea Trail, again, it's 1,175 miles across the state of North Carolina, and it's broken down into segments. And there are 18 different segments of the trail that go across the state. And one thing I'm still learning, I'm so north and south oriented. And one of the things that the Mountains of Sea Trail is teaching me is to orient myself east and west or west and east directionally when I'm on a trail. So talk to us a little bit about how the guide is set up. Does it include all 18 segments?
Yeah. So I set it up to match what the Friends of the Mountains of the Sea set out as the trail by segment, by 18 segments. The only thing we don't have right now is the Neuse River paddle route, but that'll come soon. I'm more focused on the hikers. I think people that are doing the paddle route are going to do a fair amount of research anyway before they set out on that. So
right. And I know nothing about paddling, so I would have to do immense amounts of research. So can you flip it? If I'm hiking west, can I flip it directionally to go west?
Yeah. So it's defaults as eastbound, but you can easily go into settings and select westbound, and it'll do the math and change all the numbers for you and it'll change everything to say exactly where you are. Westbound though.
I mean, I'm looking at Josh and I'm thinking in my mind, this is unbelievable. So here's a guy that just got out of the military. He goes and he's going to hike the trail. He listens to Mighty Blue, hears about Gut Hook, and all of a sudden, 2 years later, you literally have a company with your own app. I mean, bravo. I know a lot of work in between has gone into that.
You make it sound like that 2 years was fast. I felt like forever. Like, man, I wanted to have this app out like 6 months after I got off the trail. No, it's still a work in progress, but it's really coming together.
And I commend you again. I can't say this enough. I do commend you for following your gut, following your heart and mind that, hey, this is something that you wanted to do and you left the trail to do it and you're still doing it. And you've engrossed yourself as well into the Mountains of Sea Trail community. Mm-hmm. You do trail maintenance. You're creating this app for the hikers of the MST community. Talk to us about where do you see this 6 months, a year from now? Where do you see this app?
6 months, we'll have the iPhone version out for iPhone users. That is my number one goal right now. A year from now, we'll have a lot more features that I've been wanting to get to, but stuff that's probably not so necessary right at the very beginning. Stuff like elevations and part of the goals of the MST Guide is to build kind of a community. So more community oriented stuff on there. Being able to add friends, and if you're mutual friends with somebody, being able to see their location if they're on the trail. That's a goal of mine that I want to implement. Just kind of bring the entire Mountains of Sea Trail together, really, because when I get out there and work, I do a lot of different work with different groups across North Carolina, and I'm trying to do a whole lot more next year. But everybody kind of has their own way of doing it in their own trail organizations, which is great. And they have their own goals, which is that's necessary too. You know, different regions of the state are going to have different goals and different ways of building trail, but it'd be really cool to see more interconnectedness with it. And I know there is that they have that at the higher level with the administration of the Friends of the Mountains of Sea Trail and the board of directors. You know, they're from all across the state. They get together every year for their gathering of friends.
Yeah, and this year I think it's the ungathering. I think I saw that. So you mentioned
nobody has an excuse to miss it because it's virtual.
That's right. It's a virtual ungathering of friends, which I thought was awesome. Was an awesome way to say that. So
that was terrific and well thought out, I think. But yeah, I think at that level, you know, they're working together. But I think that at the grassroots level of you know, just regular trail maintainers, regular hikers, there's not this overarching sense of community that you kind of see a lot more on the Appalachian Trail. You know, like, for example, like hostel owners, you know, they have their own like little network amongst themselves, and
shuttle driver.
Yeah. And like, we don't have that on the Mountains of Sea Trail. Like, you go from town to town and you're relying on individual angels, and, you know, there's not this whole support system really that the AT has. And I think that's something that the Mountains of Sea Trail is going to have to obtain before it can really compete as a nationally recognized long distance hiking trail.
Well, I know that you are doing everything you can with your part of, designing this app and, making something available for hikers to use. And I am loving every time I go out on one of these 40-day hikes, more and more the Mountains of Sea Trail community, and getting involved in that community piece, just what you're talking about, and connecting. Because man, the Mountains of Sea Trail, what phenomenal towns that you walk through in the state of North Carolina, and connecting those communities. And from my perspective, I'm finding out that, as I go through these communities, hey, have you met so-and-so? And somebody will give me a name of somebody in the next town, or talk to so-and-so and somebody will give me a name. So I've been looking forward to working my way, to the coastal plains, and seeing and hearing about that connection. I think it's there. I just don't, like you said, I just don't know. The undercurrent is what I'm going to call it. And we need hikers. We need people. And the Mountains of Sea Trail is very open about, yes, come to our trail, come hike on our trail, come take off a segment. We need hikers. And I say we because I claim the Mountains of Sea Trail is, it's in my home state. So I claim it, and you claim it.
Yeah.
And we need people to come and get on the trail and experience the awesome things to see in the state of North Carolina. There's your ad for the Mountains of Sea Trail right there.
And the AT needs people to get off the trail because there's, too many people on the AT in the summertime. So.
Well, and the AT did put out that I saw alternate trails. If people were planning long distance trails this year, some in the Mountains of Sea Trail is an alternate trail that they are recommending. So everybody, come on, state of North Carolina, we welcome you.
We're ready for you. Come on.
And Josh is ready for you to download the MST Guide, the Android version, correct?
Yep. And definitely by next spring, we'll have the iPhone version out available for everybody. So
perfect. And everybody remember that. I mean, literally, Josh, you told me before we started recording, you are doing this on your own. I mean, it's all you now, correct?
At the moment, yeah. I have had help from others. For example, a 2019 through hiker, Phoebe Whitwell, I can't remember her trail name. She collected a lot of data for me on her through hike. That was a tremendous help. She actually wrote all the segment descriptions that we have in our guide for the MST Guide. Other hikers have helped administratively, networking, marketing. My brother helped me get started with the website and with the app itself. And, it's just been many hands that have gone into it. But right now it's dwindled down to me. We'll build the team back up. But
you know what, Josh? You're still smiling.
I ain't going nowhere. No, yeah. I plan on doing this for a long time.
Well, listen, that right there is a great way to you saying, and I ain't going nowhere. I love that. So I think it's a perfect time for you, Josh, to actually sign off for us by reading either your quote, journal entry, or statement that will keep inspiring us all to hike section by section.
Yeah. Well, two things. First, I just want to do a quick shout out, or shill rather, for NC Trail Days. It's in Elkin, North Carolina. It's celebrating not just the Mountains of Sea Trail, but all trails in North Carolina, similar to the AT Trail Days, but we also include like biking trails and paddle routes as well. So it's a great time, and I can't wait to see more people there. It's June 3rd through 6th next year, second annual. So I'll be there, and actually you can camp downtown in Elkin for free. So I'll be there, and hopefully we can get some other campers, hikers there, and have a little tent city going on. And I do have a quote I wanted to share. This is from Jim Halsey. He was the state trails coordinator back in the 70s when they determined that we need to have a Mountains of Sea Trail. And he helped plan and establish what would become the route for the Mountains of Sea Trail. He said, "Be very careful what you dream as a young person, because if it's truly your passion and your calling, it will last the rest of your life." And this comes at the end of UNC TV production on the Mountains of Sea Trail back in 2015. And when I first heard it, it really left an impression on me, because there's a deeper meaning there, and you can deduce it down to this. You don't realize it when you're young, but the dreams that you have as a kid can really stay with you for the rest of your life. And whether they're big or small, you can use that passion to go out and make a change. And then from that change, you can inspire others. and through them, your dreams can possibly live on forever. And that's really what shook me when I first heard that quote. And I've gone back and listened to it several times because it just means so much to me. And he's a great guy too. So hope to meet him one day.
Well, Josh, I really appreciate you coming on the podcast. Thank you for sponsoring the Mountains to Sea Trail episodes. And you and I definitely are not done chatting.
Not at all.
Thank you, Josh, for coming on the show and sharing your journey to creating the MST Guide with all of us. I really admire your ability to walk away from your dream of completing the Appalachian Trail to walk toward another dream of designing an app for hikers to use on the Mountains to Sea Trail. And thank you, Josh, for your service in the United States Air Force. Before I sign off for this episode, I would like to tell you about a foundation that was created in honor of Chris Sherpa Fowler and David O'Sullivan. Back in episode 13 of the podcast, my guest, Mary Emmerich, and I talk about Chris Sherpa Fowler, who went missing on the Pacific Crest Trail back in October of 2016. Chris is the son of Sally Fowler, who is a close family friend to my little sister, Terry Kidder. My sister was actually with Sally when the family had to make some hard decisions and were realizing Chris was missing. Sadly, I have to say Chris, or Sherpa, is still missing to this day and has not been heard from, and no evidence of him found on the PCT since October 2016. If something good has to come out of someone missing, I think the creation of the Fowler O'Sullivan Foundation has done just that. The foundation was created to assist families of missing hikers. The mission of the foundation is as follows. With safety and compassion as our core principles, the Fowler O'Sullivan Foundation provides assistance to families of missing hikers, connects them to vetted resources, facilitates searches on their behalf once official efforts have been suspended, and supports initiatives to prevent future missing hiker cases. I'm going to place a link to the foundation in the show notes for today's episode, and if you happen to take a look at the website from an iPhone or an iPad, please be sure to click on the hash marks in the upper right-hand corner to see all of the information the foundation is providing. If you are an Amazon Prime member, you can also make purchases through Amazon Smile and select Fowler O'Sullivan as your charitable organization. There is not a week that goes by that I don't think of Chris and pray that he is found and brought home to his family. Be safe out there, everybody. Thanks for listening and happy section hiking.
I'm wondering if you'd go wandering with me through the wilderness and woods to where the winds are blowing free, through the darkness of the night, heading toward the morning light. I wonder if you'd wander with me, and I'll spread the word and you beat the drum. We'll round up the troops and get the gang to come, and we'll leave the streets and these neighborhoods, head over the river and through the woods. You're wondering if I go wandering with you, what kind of trouble we'll get ourselves into. Would it be wrong to tag along with a band of vagabonds? You wonder if I'd wander with you. So I'll spread the word and you beat the drum. We'll round up the troops and get the gang to come, and we'll leave the streets and these neighborhoods, head over the river and through the woods. I'm wondering if you'd come wandering my way. If you ever get lost, or if the trail leads you astray, the music of the pack can always bring you back. I wonder, can we wander away? And I'll spread the word, and you beat the drum. We'll round up the troops and get the gang to come, and we'll leave the streets in these neighborhoods, head over the river and through the woods.
For the ones who work hard to ensure their crew can always go the extra mile, and the ones who get in early so everyone can go home on time, there's Grainger, offering professional-grade supplies backed by product experts so you can quickly and easily find what you need. Plus, you can count on access to a committed team ready to go the extra mile for you. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.